everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elysse, also known as Elysse Speaks. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about online language learning platforms. So if you are a language learner, if you like to learn languages for leisure or for a job or for travel or anything, you've probably heard of a couple of different online language tutoring platforms like italki, Cambly, Lingoda. There's like a ton of them. There's so many. But at the same time, I hear people say all the time that they feel like they're not getting the most out of their lessons, or that they feel like they could benefit a lot more from like private in-person lessons, which tend to cost a lot more. You don't have to do that. I feel like there's so much more to be said about, online language learning lessons, and that it's not totally just on the professor, There's a lot of things that you can do to make it more enriching for you, to make sure that you really, stretch your dollar and get every single thing that you can out of this opportunity to speak with a native. So today I was going to talk about things that you can do, whether they're small or big, to just kind of get the most out of your italki, Cambly, Lingoda, whatever online language learning experience. This comes from experience because I am a italki veteran, I guess. I started taking lessons in I must have been 14 or 15, so that was 5 or 6 years ago. And also in 2019, in October of 2019, I became a professional English tutor on italki. So I feel like I know the platform inside and out, not only on italki, but just the whole spiel of how, online tutoring goes. So without further ado, let's jump right in. By the way, wait. This is not sponsored by italki, Cambly, or anything mentioned in this video, but if they would like to, I am still open 24/7. 365. Okay, now let's go. So the first thing that you have to notice on italki when you're looking for a new teacher is you have to know the types of teachers. So there are community tutors and there are professional tutors. This is going to be the longest one. I have a little bit to say about this. The only difference is that professional tutors have an actual teaching certificate, whereas community tutors, everything's a bit more lax. They're just people who know their languages really well. Maybe they speak another language and they can transfer the knowledge to other people. Now there is I feel like there's an unspoken sort of etiquette when it comes to community versus professional teachers. So if you're taking lessons with a community teacher, I don't really think it's in their pay grade for you to ask them to plan out all of your lessons. Community tutors are just there for you to practice conversation and maybe ask for resources or music or good books in their language. They're just here to kind of hold your hand. They're not going to drive the whole boat for you. But as a professional teacher like I am, I know that I do a lot more. So for example, if I notice that a student's having a lot of trouble talking in the past, I'll message them and be like, oh, do you think that maybe we could try storytelling in the next lesson? And I'll come up with maybe 5 prompts to use during conversation. And after every single lesson, I always send the student a document with corrections, new vocabulary, just general tips, and I include also some resources or explanation videos that I think would help them. So that's why professional teachers cost more. So the next step is also part of picking a teacher. It's checking their stats. So on italki, you can see the number of lessons that a person's given and also the number of students that a person has had. And it's super important to compare the ratio, because if you see a person that has given 500 lessons and they also have 500 students, that means that each person only took a lesson with them one time. So ideally you want to find people that have, I'd say, at least 5 to 7 lessons, and they have at least 5 people that have taken 5 to 7 lessons, because it shows that people, enjoy conversing with them, they're organized, they make people want to come back. So this is why it's important to go outside of reviews, because I feel like in reviews people don't want to hurt feelings, or they just, if they didn't like the teacher, they won't be explicit. So it's just important to look at the numbers. This next one is a small tip, but it makes all the difference. Do not pick a lesson time at a very chaotic time. I have a lot of students that take lessons, on their lunch break at work, and I understand for a lot of people that's the only time that you can fit it, but you don't have to have your lessons during the week. A lot of people have availability on the weekend. I just think it's in mutual interest if the student is not scattered, if they're not rushing to, find a quiet place to take the lesson and stuff like that. Of course, I understand people that work and they need to learn a language and stuff like that. They don't have all the time in the world. Also people with kids, but if you have that luxury that you can pick a time on the weekend, or just a time in general where you don't have something directly before or directly after, I think that's best. Okay, next, we are going to talk about trial lessons. This is an italki thing. I don't know if other sites have this, but trial lessons are super useful. Not every teacher has them activated, but they cost half of the price. You can take up to 3. People don't know this. Usually they think that a trial lesson means just 1. you can take up to 3 trial lessons before you decide if you want to stay with this tutor. So you can save a little bit of cash, you know what I'm saying? Why not, you know? I just wanted to get that out of the way because a lot of people think that on italki you can only take 1 trial lesson. You can take 3 people. 1, 2, 3. 3 lessons. 3. Moving on. Okay, so that was all before, finding a professional teacher or a community teacher, deciding the schedule and stuff like that, but now it's actually time to take the lesson. Now to switch to student perspective, I think it's super useful for me to think of a couple topics beforehand so that, there's not any weird pauses in the conversation, or if you run out of stuff to say. If I feel like I won't be super good at conversing that day, I'll message my tutor, hey, could we talk about artificial intelligence or climate change or, current events? Because when you think about it, you're speaking in a language that's not your native language, and then you also have the added pressure of, am I gonna have enough things to say? What if I run out of topics and stuff like that? So to continue with that student perspective, another thing that I find super useful is to listen and speak before the lesson, maybe 20 minutes at least. So I know before my German lessons, I usually watch a video or 2 from Easy German, just so I can hear it spoken and get my brain kind of in German mode before I start speaking it. So I know for me personally, if I have a lesson right before I'm texting my friend in English or listening to a song in English, then I'm going to not do very well in my German lesson because I had to have that buffer time to switch my brain back to German mode. I really hope I'm making sense because I feel like I sound like a robot that just has switches in my brain. I wouldn't be surprised. And if I choose a topic, or maybe I'll just, choose the topic that they were talking about in the video and I'll just talk to myself. You can talk to yourself, it's not crazy, just, act like you're having a conversation or act like you're giving a small speech or something. And also if you pick a topic beforehand, like I just mentioned, you should search some keywords to have handy just so you don't have to constantly use a dictionary. A lot of my students lose at least a total 5 minutes of their lesson time because they're rifling through a dictionary and they won't let me help them. So for example, if you're going to talk about climate change, maybe you should learn the words for politician, for global warming, for carbon dioxide and stuff like that. Just a small little bit of vocabulary and you kind of brush up just before the lesson. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that. Questions. Asking questions. There's such an important factor. You can ask questions during a lesson, but you should try to depend on the target language and not your native language. I know that my German tutor, she speaks English, and at the beginning, I used to ask oh, how do you say, and then I would ask for the word. There's a lot of things that you can do to weave around it and not have to jump back to your native language. But for example, something that I do with my tutors is I will ask for the opposite of a word that I do know. So the other day, for example, I was looking for the word safe and I didn't know how to say safe. So I just asked, was ist das Gegenteil von gefährlich? And she said it was ungefährlich. And it felt 2,000 times better than just reverting back to English and then using the word. And like I just said before, if you have to keep switching your brain in and out of German mode, English mode, or if you go from Spanish mode to English mode, it's just not good. And I think that you should try to weave your way around it and just use your native language as a last resort. And on that same topic, I think a really good thing to do is to repeat corrections. So I know for a fact that when my tutor interrupts me in the middle of a sentence to say, oh, you said this wrong, or correct my pronunciation, I will re-say the sentence with the way that they said it or the way that they corrected me. And you think it might not make that much of a difference, or it might be tedious or something, but I feel like it's just good to train your brain and train your mouth to say it the right way, if that makes sense. I feel like it makes such a difference if you repeat the corrections that your tutor gives you. Because when my German tutor interrupts me in the middle of a sentence just to correct my pronunciation or give me a better word, I'll restart the sentence and, say it the way that it's supposed to be said naturally. If you take a lot of lessons, after a while, you definitely start to subconsciously absorb the natural rhythm and just how it's supposed to be said. Getting corrections is okay, that's why you're taking lessons. Just realize that your tutors are there to support you and they just want to help you make things sound as great as possible. Okay, we got 2 more. Second to last, ask questions. We love explaining. I know personally, I love to explain grammar. I love to give examples. I just think it's super important to ask questions because I feel bad finding out after a lesson, in a review or something, that the student was confused about something. And I always check in to say okay, do you have any questions at the end of the lesson? And some people don't, and then they later come to me with questions. So it just shows that you really, really should ask because we were always there to support you. Always, period. Ask questions, please. It's so important to ask questions that will help you and it will help us to better help you. So the last tip is to get involved culturally. So I talk to my tutor in German all the time about you know, the differences between German culture and American culture. And if you're just constantly comparing, you get to know a lot better your culture, but also their culture. And this can make the whole language learning process feel a lot more cohesive, yeah. Because, you know, you're not just learning a language, there's so much attached to it. There's a history, there's like, you know, literature, there's culture, and there's all these types of things. And it's equally as important, if not more, than learning the language. So yeah, that is pretty much it. I think that that covers a lot of bases that I wanted to talk about, because there's a lot to go over when we're talking about online lessons and getting your money's worth. You want to get your money's worth, but you also want to make it just as enriching for you. You gotta put the work in. Just because you know, give money and pay for it doesn't mean you're doing all that you can, you know? So like I said, thank you so much for watching. If you want to go follow me on Instagram, you can go to @ElysseSpeaks, that's ELYSSE_SPEAKS, baby. And yeah, see you next time, and happy language learning. Bye! Bye!